over. Even though that the ACC doesn't have divisions anymore, Coastal Chaos will still find a way, reacting to a crazy Week 10 in the ACC and a little bit of a sleepy Week 10 in the SEC. This is your boys at All Around the South. Welcome on in, guys. Welcome on in. Welcome on into All Around the South, your weekly college football show, talking some ACC and SEC ball as always. First and foremost, James, my dude, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Everything we thought we knew about the ACC and the SEC got flipped on its head this past weekend.
Yeah, man. So I saw someone describe this week as Paper Tiger Week, and I've never heard more of a true saying in my life. Just a lot of just puzzling results. Heads up, this is going to be yes, things happen in the SEC, and we'll for sure talk about it, especially Texas and Vanderbilt. But this is going to be a very heavy ACC show, just so everyone knows. As always, we are recording this on Sunday, so that would be November 2nd, the day after Saturday. That's Sunday. Before we go any further, though, James, do we see a firing while we're recording to continue the tradition?
If there is one, it has to be Hugh Freeze. We'll get into that later on in the show, so I don't want to touch too much on it right now. But Auburn's just a team that, don't get me wrong, there's a couple games that didn't go their way based on referee ball. But last night was just an unmotivated performance by that team.
Yeah, that was. We'll talk about that a little later, but yeah, we'll see. We have a tradition here where guys just get fired while we record. It's great. Starting out in the ACC though, recapping Week 10. Let's just start off with kind of the big one. Miami goes down to Dallas to play the Southern Methodist University Ponies, and SMU comes away with the win 26-0. And I'm going to be honest, that box score don't do it justice. And I want to give a lot of credit to Miami because Miami kind of felt like control most of the game. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah.
But SMU finding a way to get it done on the back of Kevin Jennings. I know he's still dealing with the ankle injury, which we saw flare up a little bit in that third quarter of that game. But it looks like a re-energized squad in the Ponies. And when we talk about Miami, this is going to be the season where every single person from the Southeastern Conference looks at Miami people and say, haha, we were right. We told you about Carson Beck. Just, again, I believe Carson Beck now has had, is it 6 interceptions in his past 3 games?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
So
this game, like you said, Miami, it felt like they were in control all game. You're just waiting on them to put the nail in the game. They just couldn't do it. Kevin Jennings was able to make plays to keep it going. It's not at all good for SMU. They played better this week. They limited their turnovers, unlike what they did in Winston-Salem last week. The issue that I could see come up for this SMU team in weeks coming is their inability to really establish a running game. I think they had less than 60 yards rushing for the whole game. Don't get me wrong, that's a elite front for Miami, but the fact that they so quickly just went away from it. They threw the ball for over 370 yards. You got a really good quarterback in Kevin Jennings, but his mobility is kind of impaired right now with that ankle. It's something you're going to have to watch a little bit as the year goes on. Miami, you're showing some issues on the back end in your safety room. It's something we talked about before the season. You got 2 losses now, early November. You can kind of ride the ship and make some noise, but this drastically hurts your playoff chances.
Well, now the one thing I will say to you about SMU, though, and to give them a little bit of credit, I think Rhett Lashley knows they can't run the ball very well because you look at how much they're getting the short game passing incorporated in. And like when we say short game passing, I'm not talking about running slants and drags and outs. Just screens, bubble screens, hitch screens, little tunnel screens. And I think that's kind of supplementing it. And especially when you play Miami here. I mean, I know Miami, they've lost 2 of their past 3. Don't take this the wrong way. Miami still has one of the best defensive lines in college football. And when Miami lost to Louisville, we saw the same thing, that Louisville's trying to get that incorporated.
This game highlighted the skill positions of Miami. I don't want to talk too much about Miami. Miami realistically looked like the better team for 3.5 quarters in this game. You're just
Oh,
waiting
I
on
agree.
my you saw flashes from all their young wide receivers, from Tony Johnson. You saw plays from, yep, Josiah Trader.
Josiah Trader.
Young wide receiver room, and they got some guys that are going to be a problem if they're able to maintain them. In time, this is one of those games where if you're Miami, you're looking at all the stats on the box score, and you look up at the scoreboard and you can't figure out how SMU's just hanging around, hanging around, hanging around. And it's that old story: is you let somebody hang around so long, eventually it's going to get you, and that's what happened there in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say I fell in love with SMU in this game. They were so quick on offense. Man, they were like 5 seconds from the ball was spot. They were snapping the ball, and it's something like consistently. And that's what you kind of have to do against Miami, especially when Miami's more talented than you on the line of scrimmage. All respect due to the ponies. You have to not be able to let Miami get their reps in, get through their rotations, and that's what they do. They just kept the same guys on defense on the field the whole time, and they just tired them out. Are we looking at a Miami November collapse because it's happened the past 2 years in a row?
I think you may be. The rest of their schedule kind of it's not as difficult as what you've seen. They kind of a pretty easy way the rest of it. But that's what we said after Louisville. After Louisville, statistically, they had the easiest road to the end of the year outside of Georgia Tech, which we'll get on the end of that at some point.
Yeah,
Um, but
that's going to be next.
but they're gonna have issues because they're just not being able to finish drives. Too many drives are ending in field goals and interceptions.
Well, also, I mean, this isn't me trying to pile on the kid. I know I made the comment about him earlier, but Carson Beck is regressing.
Mm-hmm.
And it really looks like their offense has boiled down to, well, Fletcher's going to run the ball for 3 yards, and then Tony's going to do some amazing, fantastical Malachi Tony thing and gain 20 yards. And that is concerning for Miami because they does not look like they have very much of a rhythm right now on offense. But interesting thing from this game, before this game kicked off, and we're in week 10, so this is the overarching conversation piece for the rest of the season. I'm sorry if it bores you to death. Miami, 41% chance to make the college football playoff before this game kicked off. Right now, currently on Sunday, they are sitting at 13%. So it does not look likely for the Canes. Moving on around, another pretty big upset in the ACC. North Carolina State, they host Georgia Tech. Weird things happen in Carter Finley on Saturday nights when there's a top 10 team in there. They got some weird voodoo magic. I know it's the day after Halloween. They win the game 48-36.
I want to give a shout out to CJ Bailey. He got hurt pretty early on in this game. His mobility was a little impaired. His ability to stand in the pocket and be able to move around, even on that bad leg, and I think he's still for near 400 yards. That kid's a fighter. He's still young too. NC State's a weird team this year. They're the same team that's now beat both Georgia Tech and Virginia.
One of those being out of conference, which is just the
Yeah.
wildest thing in the world.
They're a team you really never know what you're gonna get. But the one thing I can consistently say, if you're a North Carolina State fan, is you have a quarterback you can actually believe in, and you get him healthy, he can cause issues against any defense.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks I can believe in, I'm never not going to say good things about Haynes King because he has another phenomenal game. He goes for 400. He does everything he can on the ground. And the Georgia Tech offense looks fine. Like they look dandy. I mean, if you were telling me right now, if I was a Heisman voter, Haynes King is in my finalist. But we've said it for the past, it feels like 2 months on this show. That defense is awful. That is an awful, awful defense. And it bit you in the butt. It bit you in the butt this week. You cannot, I mean, the pass defense was awful. They're out of coverage. Guys are busting free on clear busted routes. I mean, it's horrendous. And for Georgia Tech, typically when we look at a team like this, Georgia Tech, they were 8-0, now they're going 8-1. They were in the top 10. There's not a lot of typically there wouldn't be a lot of concern bells, especially with their remaining schedule. But this is like the third game in a row where it's been major concern bells for Georgia Tech, and it's bit them in the butt now.
And another thing about Georgia Tech is the one thing that got them so highly ranked was that win against Clemson. And we're going to discuss here in a few minutes, but that Clemson win from a week to week basis is consistently becoming devalued.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. Georgia Tech though with this, so if you're not fully tracking on the ACC tiebreaker scenarios, it's okay. The guys in Charlotte don't even know what's going on with it because it was never finalized with the. There you go. If that's not the most ACC statement in the world, I don't know what to tell you. But Georgia Tech looks more than likely like they are out of the Charlotte race due just to some early interpretations of the tiebreakers.
I think right
With
now,
that being,
honestly,
oh, I'm sorry.
if the season ended today, it looks like it would be Louisville and Duke.
Louisville and Duke, man, that would upset a lot of people. That doesn't make sense. Virginia, they don't have a conference loss.
I mean, if Virginia lost, but
Okay.
it's Virginia. It'd be Virginia and Louisville right now.
Okay. That sounds more likely. Okay. But with Georgia Tech, it's not looking like you're going to make it to Charlotte with the remaining schedules of Louisville and Virginia. Now, Louisville still has a big test in SMU, and they're going down to Dallas, and we just saw how that worked out for Miami, which was a college football playoff hopeful team. So, see if the Cards can get it done. But Georgia Tech's not fully out of the college football playoff here. You have that Georgia game at the end of the season, and it's a quite simple. If you win that game, you're in. And that's the easiest way I would describe it for them. So your season's not over, and we're going to talk about this more when we talk a little SEC ball. But I'm a little concerned about Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot of concerned about Georgia actually. Continue to bump around though. You mentioned it, the shootout down in Clemson, South Carolina. Duke beats Clemson 46-45.
So I want to word this game. It was a shootout and score, but in my terms of shootouts, when offenses are just so good, I think this was a little bit of the defenses were just awful, but the offenses
Yes.
weren't having to really scheme much. It was just guys were like I remember I texted you a pass that I think the receiver had 30 yards before he was even within like broadcast view of another Clemson player. Um, this Clemson defense, we knew it, there was a chance the secondary was going to be a little underprepared. And early in the year, we talked about how this Clemson offense wasn't performing, but the defense has regressed so much since week one.
Mhm.
And this is a Duke offense. We knew Darian Minson could throw the ball. That's a worthy investment that they were able to put into there. But Duke, in the same, they're having issues in being able to stop the running game from the opposing. They allowed Clemson to, I think, run for more yards than they have all season.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, and this was a Clemson offense where we have been really, really questioning the running back room because we don't know if they have a true running back. For me, I don't want to spend too much time on this game because at the end of the day, it's a 3-5 team losing to a 5-3 team. But what I will kind of hit on is the fall that we have seen from the Clemson Tigers. And it's been a consistent struggle. I know this is a team that just made the college football playoff last season, but let's all not kid ourselves. They shouldn't have made it. They were
Mm.
struggling into going into the college football playoff. If you start looking really at Clemson, it gets a little concerning. Did you see the comments that Cade Klubnik made after the game by chance?
Oh, you know about the one where he says he only has so many games left as this team's quarterback?
Yeah, just weird comments to be making after you lose a game like that. That don't sit right with me, brother. And then I look at the whole Dabo situation. First off, Dabo Sweeney ain't going nowhere unless he chooses to. He's got a $61 million buyout. The Clemson ain't paying $61 million to get rid of Dabo Sweeney, as they shouldn't. He's arguably one of the best. He's one of the most proven college football coaches currently in America, based off his resume alone. But the very questionable decisions with the coordinators that we've seen, the lack of willingness to get involved in the transfer portal, it's starting to really, really pile up for Clemson. And this is a team, man, if they don't make a bowl game, again, I'm not saying Dabo's going to be fired, but there's a lot of heat on Dabo after the season if they don't make a bowl game, and it doesn't look possible for them to do so. That team looks awful.
They have a tough road out. They're currently sitting at 3-5 now, and they'll have Louisville at Louisville, and they got South Carolina still on the schedule.
Yeah. Jumping around a little bit more though, just in the conference, not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this. Chapel Bill gets his first win. North Carolina beats Syracuse 27-10. Notre Dame has a weird one with Boston College. They win 25-10.
It
BC
was close.
showing, yeah,
BC with 20-yard line with 8 minutes left and threw a pick. And then Jeremiah Love broke one for 94 yards. But BC's right there. BC's improving. Week to week, they're getting better each week.
yeah,
This is this ain't Notre Dame's technically not ACC football, but there's some reason to be concerned if you're a Notre Dame fan.
oh yeah. Continuing on down the line, Virginia goes out to Cal. They win 21 or sorry about that. Continuing down the line, Virginia, they go out to California. They win 31-21. Another just game from Virginia. Louisville, they travel to Blacksburg. They beat Virginia Tech 28-16. Pittsburgh beats up on Stanford 35-20. And then finally, Florida State gets on the board finally in the ACC for the first time in a long time. They beat Wake Forest 42-7 in the big upset.
Does this not tell you everything you need to know about the ACC this season? That last week, Wake Forest, who tried to do everything they could to do to lose to SMU, beat SMU, then SMU did what they did this week.
Yeah. No, that sounds right. It sounds right. I mean, that is this league incarnate. It's just the ACC is constant chaos. And the quicker that you realize that and understand it, the more fun the league becomes, honestly.
It's
Uh I guess
it's very
my big take sorry.
I said it's very much that old Jimmy V quote, survive in advance.
That's all it is, man. At this point in the season, that's all it is. Uh Looking around at the ACC though, so I think realistically right now, your main contenders for Charlotte are Virginia, Louisville, and Georgia. Is Georgia Tech still one?
I think Georgia Tech, I think they're in it, but they have to rely on everybody else. I think Duke's still in there. Duke has a pretty hard rest of the road, but they still
Well, they
technically,
play Georgia Tech.
and they play Virginia.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're still in the running. But I think your primary candidates right now, Duke, Louisville, and Virginia, hold kind of control their own destiny. That SMU Louisville game is going to be whoever wins that game is probably going to end up in Charlotte.
I mean, that's probably going to be a clinching game to be completely.
Yeah.
That definitely will be a clinching game for someone. I mean, just realistically looking down the line, Louisville might be able to clinch with a win against Clemson when they play them in 2 weeks. Virginia, it looks like they could clinch in 2 weeks as well, just kind of the way the league is working out right now. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it like I believe it was last week's show. We talked about how hey, there's really like 5 teams that can make it to Charlotte. That list is continuously getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I guess my big takeaway now is does the ACC still get 2 teams in the college football playoff?
I think they still get two because we'll touch on when we touch the SEC. I think Georgia Tech has a clear path as long as they don't have no more hiccups and they're able to beat Georgia. Now, I don't think they make it to Charlotte. So I think you get the ACC champion and you get Georgia Tech in if they're able to beat Georgia.
Okay. I'm kind of right now I'm saying 1. There is still the path for 2. I can see it. Realistically, the way I look at this is and this is going to sound, I'm not trying to be the hater, not trying to be the Virginia hater. If Virginia loses another game, though, they're out of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if it's in the ACC championship. They're just that's the reality of their schedule and their metrics. Louisville, I don't think you get in at 10-2 unless you win the ACC championship. So they got to win out. They got a nice little stretch coming up where they're going to prove themselves a lot. Sneaky team to watch here. Sneaky. Pittsburgh. Keep a close eye on Pittsburgh.
That freshman quarterback's fun to watch they have over there.
They got a really, really big game coming up in 2 weeks where they host Notre Dame. That could be a game for Pittsburgh to really make a lot of noise. Because I'm fully anticipating Pittsburgh being in the college football playoff top 25 poll later this week. I think they'll probably be around 25th, 24th. But watch out for Pittsburgh. They are slowly getting better and better and better. With that, though, anything else you want to hit on with the ACC?
Shout out to NC State. Many people gave you a chance this week. It kind of felt like a lot of the national media were kind of just writing you off and saying Georgia Tech's just going to run through the rest of their ACC slate. You were able to show how prominent you are offensively. We've seen that throughout the year. Defensively, you have some hiccups. Georgia Tech, you got to pick yourself up now because this is the end of the season, and you have everything that you wanted outside of everything you wanted still within grasp. You just got to rely on some other things to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Before we get into the SEC talk, though, if you've been watching this long for 20 minutes, brother, and you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Please like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. It really does help out the page, helps promote us a little bit better, and helps with that almighty YouTube algorithm. Hopping on over to the Southeastern Conference, though, a little bit of a lazy week in the SEC, in my opinion, but there was still a couple of things here to talk about. Notably, in my opinion, right now, Ole Miss, Alabama, they're both on byes this week, so not a whole lot to say. Ole Miss was not on a bye. They squeaked by South Carolina. I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Ole Miss thought they were on a bye.
Talking about the SEC, though, they did. They did. You know, we're just gonna leave that in there. Because that kind of sums up the Ole Miss game. They scoreboard does not reflect how close that game really was. It does not at all. Lenore Sellers, by the way, looks like he's regressing.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a point of conversation that everyone's ready to have yet. We were crowning him a preseason Heisman favorite, and I mean he's just not doing a lot of anything. Ole Miss doing the Ole Miss thing. They still have an easy path. That's all I got to say about Ole Miss.
That'll be its own conversation. The 3 preseason Heisman favorites have all drastically regressed this season.
Well, let's talk about one of the other preseason Heisman favorites that really looked like it. Let's talk about Texas beating Vanderbilt.
That was the most energy I've seen.
It looks good.
Mm-hmm.
It looks good. Hey, you know what? That is the Texas team I've expected to see all season long.
Their wideout room's insane. I think they were able to rely a lot on the speed they have on the outside more in this game than they have in weeks past. And I think as you've seen their offensive line get a little healthier, you're seeing Arch have a little bit more time in the pocket.
Well, yeah, he's starting to look a little more comfortable with being in a bad situation behind that Texas offensive line, because even when they're getting healthy, they still don't look as good. I know that this was a game that Texas was favored in. This game was in Nashville. But with all of that being said, are you like fully bought in on Texas now?
No. There's too many glaring issues, specifically in that defense, and their run defense specifically has shown some issues. And I hate to say it, but last year, what the back of the Texas defense was their defensive line being able to get pressure rushing for. This year, they're not able to do it, and consistently, they're not able to scheme pressure. And I think you're going to see that a little bit more against teams that have more running quality. Like in a couple weeks, whenever that Texas team plays Georgia, it scares me because I think Gunnar Stockton's going to be willing to run the ball a lot more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's a good win for Texas, and I'm not trying to take that away from them. But I'm not fully still bought in on this Texas team. I need to see more. And no offense to Vanderbilt. I know Vanderbilt was top 10 team. I've said really nice things about Vanderbilt. I've thrown that name around a lot in the college football playoff discussion. But it's Vanderbilt. Diego Papi is a heck of a quarterback. Eli Stowers, he's a great tight end. They have really quality line of scrimmage play, but there's a huge, huge difference in those and playing in Alabama or Texas A&M. And that's what really kind of concerns me with this game is Vanderbilt, they made it a ball game late. They were able to really fire back in that fourth quarter and make it a lot more uncomfortable.
They about got that onside kick.
Oh, I know. So I don't, and honestly, you know, Vanderbilt setting a 7-2. I know they still have a pretty difficult schedule coming up. Hey, man, if you win out, you're still in that race. You know what I'm saying? And for Texas at this point, you're just trying to maintain because I don't think Texas gets there with 3 losses.
I was gonna piggyback off the Vanderbilt thing. You said they have everything in front of them if they take care of their business. One of the teams they have to beat the rest of the way had a big one last night, as they hosted Oklahoma. Tennessee
Yes,
with a
they
big flat.
did. And that was a college football playoff eliminator game right there also.
That was an extremely
That
odd
was. I
game
think Tennessee's out of the race. Well, tell me about it. Why was it odd? Why was it odd?
because it felt you went in knowing, but Tennessee had the offense, but their defense lacked, and it kind of flipped. Oklahoma the last few weeks, their offense had performed well, but their defense had performed. You knew they had a top 10 defense. And you kind of got a little bit of both. You had Oklahoma's defense getting shredded at times by Tennessee's offense, but at times Tennessee's defense looked better than they have all season against Oklahoma. So you saw Oklahoma's offense still having issues. But at the end of the day, what happened was Tennessee's inability to get off the field on third down, and that scoop and score that Oklahoma
Mhm.
was able that second quarter. It's hard to win games against teams that are equal or better than you in talent whenever you're giving away points.
Now, same exact question I just asked you about Texas. Do you feel better about Oklahoma?
Oh no, I left with more questions about Oklahoma in this game.
I don't either. That's the thing. I don't either.
I've not been high on Tennessee all season. Their defense has gotten progressively worse, and I think their offense is probably the most one-dimensional offense I've seen out of a Josh Heupel coach team at Tennessee. They're able to throw the ball; they get the yards. Like it's a really good system. The only issue, I think, it kind of all falls apart if you're just able to eliminate the run, and I think that's what Oklahoma was able to do consistently in that second half.
No, yeah, I agree. Moving around though, one more weird game. World's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia squeaks by Florida. They win 24-20, and that was a I've been kind of alluding to the Georgia talk throughout this show, so I'm going to get into it. I'm officially concerned about Georgia football. The reason I'm concerned, they are beating really bad teams by not a lot of points. They're struggling. And I've never seen a Georgia program like this, especially when I look in a comparison to I don't know, Texas A&M, they've had their struggles throughout the season, but they're looking progressively stronger throughout the year. Alabama, obviously, they lost to a football team with 3 wins in their first game of the season. They've looked consistently stronger throughout the year. I do not see that from Georgia. And I come away from every single Georgia football game asking myself the same question. What's going on in the secondary? That pass defense does not look good at all. And it's a weird time for Georgia because Gunner looks like he's progressing and he looks like he's getting better. But there's some serious question marks on the D. And when you look at who else is in the SEC, again, I'm going to keep hitting on them. You look at Texas A&M and you look at Alabama, you look at how dynamic those offenses are. Man, I feel like one of those programs could put up 50 plus points on Georgia if they played in Atlanta.
Okay. So the newspaper article is going to say controversy reigns supreme. There's a play on a third down late in the game where the Florida receiver kind of slipped coming back to the ball. And did he catch it? Did he not catch it? It's kind of controversial. They called it incomplete on the field, so it was upheld. Florida fans are going to be talking about that all off season. The concern from this isn't fair credit for Florida for giving them a game. First game since Napier was firing. But the story of this is going to be that of the secondary of Georgia has consistently been just shredded. You saw it was highlighted the most in that Ole Miss game. You got Texas here in a couple weeks, and with Texas offense against Vanderbilt, as we touched on, has looked better than it has all year. And that's some concern, especially if they're able to get Wingo involved. And that's another thing is you said if they play them Atlanta, I don't think this Georgia team with the defense playing the way they are currently makes it to it.
I kind of agree. I kind of agree on that. But continuing to jump around, I think that's really it for me on week 10 in the SEC. Anything else you want to hit on?
I think that's all we touch on. There was the game that kind of felt like the hot seat bowl between Auburn and Kentucky. Both offenses looked awful. Don't get me wrong, the defensive talent that we've
Every
seen, and
every week I watch a Kentucky football game, I ask myself what I'm doing with my life.
I watched this one just because
Genuinely.
every list I in about hot seat, I saw Hugh Freeze and Mark Stoops 1 and 2. I'm like, so the loses their job, and the winner takes over number one on the list.
It's an old loser leaves town match. Old strap match as they used to call them back in the day. Looking forward though to week 11, and for my ACC football fans, I got some bad news. It's a pretty sleepy week for you guys. You got you got a big game though. It's sleepy, but you got a big game in the ACC this week. You have the who can spend more money on lawsuits game. You have 4-4 Florida State against 3-5 Clemson in Clemson, South Carolina on the ACC network. I'm not going to be watching that football game. I'll tell you right now. You that is in the same category of the Kentucky Auburn game from this week for me. Other than that, though, I mean, really, the only other things going on around the conference, you have Syracuse traveling to Miami, SMU's traveling to Boston College, Wake Forest traveling to Virginia, and then California traveling to Louisville. Really not that great of a slate, in my honest opinion.
Some big situations going on though. With the win over California, Louisville can position themselves to be able to host kind of an ACC title game clincher if things fall the right way the following Friday against Clemson.
Yeah. And then same thing can be said for Virginia.
Yeah.
When they host Wake Forest. But again, Wake Forest has been one of those hot and cold teams. Who knows what's going to happen? Moving on over to the SEC. Again, a very another sleepy week. You have Texas A&M and Missouri, which it loses a lot of luster with the Prebula injury, obviously. I think it's just going to be fun to watch Texas A&M. They're one of the more fun football teams in the country right now, in my opinion.
I think this is interesting for all the wrong reasons. Because you got Missouri starting a third string quarterback. But here's the thing, I think this game's going to be closer than people think because Missouri has a legit top five
Really,
running back in the country right now. And I'm
they do.
still very much a large believer in that Missouri defense. I think they have a chance if they're able to really implement that running game early in this game to be able to get to the fourth quarter, and once you get to the fourth quarter, anything can happen.
No, I agree. I agree. Other things going on in the conference. Georgia is going over to Starksville to play Mississippi State. The Citadel is traveling to Oxford to play Ole Miss. Auburn is going up to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. LSU and Alabama, which should have been a big game, does not look like one anymore with the Brian Kelly firing. And then you have Florida and Kentucky. Again, kind of a sleepy week. Sleepy week in both leagues. And you just get these weeks sometimes. There's really not much you can say. We didn't really hit on it last show because, again, we record on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
The Brian Kelly situation. Everything that's going on down there in Baton Rouge right now, it is pure insanity.
Yeah, but
It
it's
is
not even a Brian Kelly
absolute
situation
insanity.
anymore. It's just an LSU situation.
It's a state of Louisiana situation at this point, man. You got the governor getting involved. You got the attorney general getting in there. It is just a wild and wacky time down there in Death Valley. But my question for you, if you are LSU, who are you hiring? Pending that the governor signs on for it.
That's the thing. I would have, if you asked me this a week ago, I would have said Summerall. Summerall, I still think is probably the leading favorite for it, but his team just did not show up at all at UTSA this week. It was honestly probably the worst I've ever seen a Summerall coach team play. I think we all pretty much have heard Lane Kiffin is all but inked to Florida right now, so I think you move on from him. I think if you're LSU, do not be mad. Like, I think whoever gets Eli Drinkwitz is getting a steal. I think he's a good coach. I think if you give him the proper resources, he can win you some ball games. If I'm LSU, I give Eli Drinkwitz a call. He's a guy that, let's be honest, he's not going to demand the most salary. He's not going to demand the 16 mil that Lane Kiffin made. You may be able to get him at 12, 13 mil and be able to go get you a starting quarterback next year because Garrett Nussmeier is going to be graduating. Unless you're comfortable with Michael Van Buren and you've seen Drink be able to do great things with less. Pribula was a backup and had never started a game from Penn State, and he's able to manufacture a top 15 team with him this year. So I'm going to go Eli Drinkwitz.
What a spicy name. I have a very spicy name that I would be
What is it?
calling if I was LSU. I'd be calling Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom in Baton Rouge. It wouldn't. I don't think it would ever happen. And I know this is Louisville Page. If you're a Louisville fan, close your ears for a little bit. Jeff Brom in Baton Rouge has multiple national titles written all over it. Oh, he left. Start talking about Jeff Brom and he gets up.
Sorry. I've heard.
If I
It
am
would be good.
LSU, I'm calling Jeff Brom. There's a fit there. There's a good fit there.
I agree. It would be a good fit. I think he would do well in the SEC, and you give him the proper resources. He's one of the top coaches in the country. That's not even coming from me just being a Louisville guy. I think he's a guy that is going to get interest from all those jobs. It's a slippery slope.
I'm
And
just
when you
saying, I'm
start
giving a
pulling,
very, very long and hard look.
my non-biased, it kind of feels like it's Summerall's job to lose since he's already in the state. Probably already got. It's sad that you have to say this about college football head coaching positions. He's probably got connects inside the government of Louisiana.
I mean, yeah, it is Tulane. Okay, I'll give you that. But here's my question. I think John Summerall's a heck of a coach. I genuinely do. I think he's a great coach. I think there's a reason why he's getting so much interest that he's getting. I couldn't see anyone in Baton Rouge getting excited for John Summerall because Tulane, great program. Tulane, I mean, they're there in New Orleans. You know, they get looks, but as someone that has primarily lived on the Gulf Coast for the past 15 years of his life, people in Louisiana do not care about Tulane football. They just do not. The doctors in New Orleans, they care a lot about Tulane. That's about it. I don't see it. And the LSU's one of those positions. I don't know if you can go to the G5 ranks unless like it is just an absolute superstar in the making. John Summerall's a good coach. I would not put him in that category.
I want to float something. I know you've heard rumors that he's negotiations with other schools, but if you're LSU, do you try to make a phone call to former SEC coach James Franklin and see if he can come down and do anything different? But I wouldn't if it was me personally. But is that you could
I
see
feel
them
like
consider?
that's too similar. I think it's too similar to the Brian Kelly situation, honestly. I think there's a really bad taste in people's mouth down there. I don't see it. I think it's way too similar of a situation. But Jeff Brom,
Can we talk? Can we touch on something 1 second? When was the last time that you could say there's 4 to 5 SEC jobs open in the same offseason?
yeah, no, I mean and they're big time jobs. I mean, no disrespect of these programs, it's not like Kentucky and South Carolina are open and Vanderbilt. That's not the situation that we're in. These are big jobs. These are jobs that spend a lot of money on football. These are jobs with high expectations, you know, and that's what's so exciting about it. The John Summerall thing, by the way, because I'm not crapping on John Summerall. I think John Summerall, let's say Drink leaves Missouri or Kiffin leaves Ole Miss, he's going to fit in perfect there. At one of those two jobs, he'd fit in perfect. Stoops leaves Kentucky, he'd fit in perfect there. It's just programs like LSU are different. And yes, it's an SEC job, but there's 2 tiers in the SEC, and they're not in those upper tiers. But just really just wild. And I'm again, and Auburn is not in that upper tier at all, but Auburn is a program that has shown time and time and time again that they will spend a enormous amount of money on college football. Because I mean, of course, you have to keep up with the Joneses. But Auburn's gonna come open. I mean, I don't know if it happens today. It feels like it's going to happen every week for the past 3 weeks, but Auburn will come open. Hugh Freeze will get fired. And
I do think there's a meeting scheduled tomorrow at 8 a.m.
oh, okay. Yeah, before we came on, I looked at Nakos before we came on, and he hadn't put anything out there. But I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, I just hope Kay Ivey isn't making the hire. But Auburn hires are weird anyway. It's like 3 people and the guy that owns Yellowwood. But I mean, and I would say it's reasonable to say that Kentucky would open at this time as well. I mean, I know there's a whole thing in there and not doing that conversation, but at this point in time, I'd say it's reasonable that it opens. The thing that worries me, if you're an SEC program right now, let's say you are a Kentucky, you're not going to be able to make a move on a guy that you want to make a move on because Kentucky fans and even Kentucky media personalities and Kentucky boosters have had John Sumrall pinned in as the heir apparent to Mark Stoops for the past 3 years. That's not going to be available. Just quite simply, it's not. And if you're on the edge of making a coaching move this year, as much as it stinks to say, if you haven't already made one, I'd maybe hold off.
Speaking of coaching moves, you spoke on Lenora Sellers' regression. They just now fired his offensive coordinator. Mike Shula is out at South Carolina.
There you go. There you go. ACC though, coaching moves. Since we're here, might as well talk about it. Do you see any happening in the ACC?
I saw a report. Don't get me wrong, you see a lot of reports from on these boards right now. Don't know how serious it is, but I've heard from multiple sources that there's possible that a certain Georgia Tech head coach may be taking an interview during the bye week up at State College.
Hey man, I again in Louisville Page. Louisville Page, for God's sakes. I know. Take the Louisville stuff out of it here. Take the Louisville stuff out of it here for a second. If you are hiring a coach right now, you take a hard, long look at Jeff Brom and Brent Key. Because everything I just said about Jeff Brom, you can say about Brent Key. That guy is a phenomenal coach. He's young. He's hungry. That is a guy, and I hope Brent Key doesn't leave Georgia Tech also, because Georgia Tech being good is good for the league. And I'll be honest, I kind of like watching Georgia Tech at the same time. I think Georgia Tech's a fun team. And I've loved to see what Brent Key does down there because he does like NIL. They do it so unique down there. They do like essentially a moving pay scale system. It's really cool. Look it up sometime. Give a look, like seriously, if you are LSU right now, look at Louisville for Jeff Brom. Look at Georgia Tech for Brent Key. That might be the safest and the best hires possible.
I think people forget what Georgia Tech was before Brent Key. Like that was a team that was having trouble getting wins, and now you're talking
Jeff
about
Collins. Jeff Collins is a football. I don't know if YouTube will actually let me say the word. He was a football someone that pushes political motivations with violence. I think YouTube will flag us if I say that word on here. But yeah, Jeff Collins was awful. Georgia Tech, they were terrible for like, it felt like 10 years.
Yeah.
My question for you, and this will be a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about old Mario? If we see the prototypical November slump from Miami, because so here's the beautiful thing with Miami, private school. They don't got to release any of this. We don't know what Mario Cristobal's buyout is. We don't know what his salary is. We have rumblings, but it's not like you can put a FOIA request in or anything of that nature. It has to be made public because there's no taxpayer money there. It's all private. I would argue Mario Cristobal probably is paid around $10 million a year. I think that'd be very realistic to say that.
Yeah.
If we see another November slump, with the amount of money they're paying Mario and with the amount of money that boosters put into that program, because again, Miami, man, they're spending $20+ million on a roster. Is there a legitimate conversation to be had?
I think here's the thing. I don't think Mario's it's going to be hard for him to match this experience he has on this team and the talent in years to come whenever he's consistently falling short as the year goes on. It's about the same time it happened last year. You're looking at it that week 9, 10, whenever he loses 2 out of the last 3. He lost 2 out of the last 3 now. The issue with that last year, you had a quarterback that was he was able to, whenever it wasn't there and through the air, he could just take off running and make something
They
happen.
didn't
This
make
year, Carson Beck,
they didn't make the college football playoff with Cam freaking Ward.
yeah. Um, I think you have to take a long, hard look in the mirror if you're Miami. I think he gets another year. I think this is one of those situations where if it was any other year, he would let him go. You would let Mario go after the numerous failures over the course of the past 4 years, specifically the last two. But this is a coaching carousel. You're going to see guys that normally would be let go be granted another year just to try to put themselves in a better situation to get their guy. Because I don't think Miami wants to be in a bidding war with Penn State and LSU right now.
Well, it's like that Mark Stoops, Mike Norvell conversation. And to put into perspective how crazy this entire hiring cycle has been, or I guess firing cycle, I just had to make a mental note in my head when I'm looking down at my scoreboard of notes and say, wait, did Norvell get fired yet? That's how crazy of a cycle it's been. But it seems like that situation where, I mean, yeah, the results might not be there, but you
I got a
just don't
question
want to
for you.
compete with those programs.
I got a spicy topic, and neither fan
All right.
base wants to admit this. We just came off a game we think was a hot seat bowl, lose or lose town. I think there's another one this week in that Florida State Clemson game. I think
I
there's a
don't think
real.
so.
I
I don't
think
think so.
I think it. I think it's more so one way than the other. I think one has more grace.
I don't see it, man. I know I talked about Dabo earlier on in the show. $61 million buyout, multiple national championships, completely resurrected your football program. Clemson was a solid little 7 to 8 win team a season before Dabo got there, and I'm sure if you're actually, there's probably a good amount of people that watch this show because I've seen our analytics. They don't know what Clemsoning is. Clemsoning used to be a real thing back in like the mid 2000s. I feel very
Mm-hmm.
old saying that. I don't see a move happening at Clemson. I think the only way that there's a move there is if it is Dabo saying, "Hey, I am making a move." And I'm foregoing my buyout and I'm getting out of the situation because it's gotten toxic. Um, that's the only way I see it. For Norvell, I think they want Florida State has not been fiscally responsible, I would say, in the past few years, probably like 3-4 years, with a lot of the hires that they've made and, obviously lawsuits and NIL. There's always been a little thing with Florida State and NIL, especially in the transfer portal. I think they're gonna make a good choice here, and as much as it stinks, I think they hold on to Norvell at least through this season because it is just such of a hard hire to make right now. Because Florida State,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you pay out Norvell, what his buyout's around 50? Is it 50 million?
Yeah, around 45 to
Somewhere around
50.
there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
45 to 50, probably with his staff. And I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, so I might butcher them, but I would assume with his staff, you're probably looking at like 60 plus in total. So you're going to pay 60 plus, and then you're going to go out. You're going to get a guy in his new staff. The guy you're going to get's going to be around 9 to 10 new staff. Give him 4 to 5 on top of that. So we're looking at a transaction of what, close to $90 million right now. I don't see the money
Mm-hmm.
being there. And then for everything we've been saying, I don't know if the coach is there. I mean, call Jeff Brom. That's also a really good fit.
Mm-hmm.
I think just what we're seeing with like extensions and everything, I don't know if it happens. I don't. Unless you want to like hire like Gus Malzahn. If you just want to promote
Mm-hmm.
him. You know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah.
Honestly, like what do you think?
So selfishly, I wouldn't mind them hiring Jimbo back. I think they
Again, and
allow
like
them. I'd
sorry,
let
you
I'd
go,
let
sorry.
Norvell. I would allow Norvell to finish the year. I think you're in a weird situation at 3-5. Your odds of making a bowl aren't great. This is more telling for who loses this game. At that point, you're gonna have to be perfect the rest of the year just to get to a bowl game. When you said it about these two teams, not even preseason, after week one, if I told you Florida State would be 3-5 going into their game against Clemson, you would have called me crazy.
And then if you, I mean,
So
yeah, yeah.
so I could see this being a situation where Florida State lets Norvell go in the offseason and they say, well, let's just go back to what works, and they hire Jimbo.
I don't. This isn't me doing the meme. I'm not doing anything like that. I don't hate Jimbo as a potential candidate because Jimbo has shown he wants to get back into coaching. You know, he's made it very apparent Jimbo has more money than God because of the oil industry in the state of Texas. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard conversation to have. That is a very
Mhm,
hard conversation to have. Jimbo is a good coach also. The whole Texas
mhm.
A&M debacle, I do not put a lot of that blame on Jimbo Fisher, personally. Put it this way, me as a University of Louisville fan, if for some reason we had to hire a coach this offseason and I was told, hey, Jimbo Fisher's going to be your head coach, I would not be upset. I would not be upset at all.
Mhm.
There are names that are very hot commodities right now where I would be upset. Jimbo Fisher's not one of those names.
I think he's a solid coach. I just don't know if Florida State University, and Jimbo could come back together.
Was it Jimbo? Oh gosh, I can't remember if it was Taggart or Jimbo. But no, it was definitely Jimbo because it was when he went to Texas A&M. They figured out he was like the local media figured out Jimbo Fisher was leaving because like 5 days before Christmas, he had his Christmas tree in his trash can in front of his house.
Yeah.
Wild times. I love college football, man. You say that to like anyone that doesn't understand college football, they think you're just insane. Like what? Uh, outside of that though, talked a lot of ACC football in the front half. Talked some SEC football. Looked forward to Week 11, kind of a down week for both conferences. Then spent the past 20 minutes or so bull crapping about coaches. Anything else you want to add on to the conversation for all around the South in Week 10, James?
Not particularly all around the South. Tune in this week. We're gonna start our little playoff show. Yeah.
Be on the lookout for multiple uploads this week. You never know. The Cardinal Companion boys might get a little crazy. But
But uh, playoff rankings come out first week of playoff rankings come out Tuesday. Everybody tune into that. Should be an interesting list.
yes, 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 yes. The initial rankings are always, in my opinion, the most important because the playoff committee has changed their criteria every single year, and we will get a good idea of what their criteria is. Um, other than that, though, we're going to catch you guys around. Longer show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that great stuff. If you have someone in your life, you're like, man, this guy really likes college football, send them over the video. You know, little word of mouth never hurt nobody. But thank you guys, as always, for tuning in all around the South. Great show this week, and we will catch you all next week talking ACC and SEC football, baby.